All right. Yeah, we're getting better at that. If me and you will quit doing the same stuff, we got to work on that.
My hands are
Hello,
not touching anything.
what's up, everybody? How are y'all doing today? My light over here is flickering, so if I look like I'm flashing, it's not the paparazzi; it's my light having spasms. Uh, but,
You,
anyways, uh,
you getting so popular, you got paparazzi.
no, I don't think I'm in no danger of having that anytime soon. So we'll roll through the comments and see who's here as usual. Unless, hey, well, how would you do that? That saved me some. There you go. You go through
Not
there and
now.
do
I'm
the
gonna have
roll
to.
call.
I gotta do some scrolling here. All
Yeah, I
right,
mean, let's mix it up a little.
right. Well, going way back, some of the early ones in before the show. We've got Sim the Tourney from all the way from France. Checking in from France. That's awesome. We got Jack in the shop. He's here quite often. Vince Nobucks, welcome. Cole Woodworks, Chris Gallagher down under, Steve Holcomb. We got Brandon M. Brian Smith's in the house. He's not late this week. We got to be nice. Can't make fun of him. Jim Pitts, welcome. Mark Bigham, Jeff Benedict, Mike Pierce. Good evening, everyone. Scott Johnson, how are you doing? Kevin Rich from Chattanooga, Tennessee. A lot of times I'll be heading down south. A lot of times I do drive through Chattanooga, but won't be doing it this year. Janny Hollister from Southeast Texas. Roger Court, North Illinois. Jeremy Jordan, soaking and raised, sunny Space Coast, Florida. That's a place I would love. I'd love to go to Kennedy Space Center sometime. Let's see, who else did we miss? Aldrich Custom Crafts, York, Pennsylvania. Welcome in. Brian Smith wondering where Klein's at. Old Guy Designs, Chicago Bob. Welcome, you guys. You got Nipa. David Allen's over on Twitch. David does stream to Twitch. I haven't linked mine yet. We got Don Moses and Mark Patterson. Had enough okay. I always have to look at that one a little closely. Dave
Yeah.
Goshi. Hobo with Woods here. Good to see you,
What's up,
Steve.
Hobo?
He didn't quite do his 5-hour stream last night. I was a little disappointed. The Belly Goat. Hello.
He still outlasted me.
Up North Knowledge, up in Maine. Let's see. Hopefully, I'm not missing too many. Chuck Pedersen from Florida. Jesse Griffin. Sharon Simonson, he's here. David Buchheiser. Kevin Jensen. He's actually got a question in there. We'll get to that in just a bit. And let's see if I'm missing anyone. Michael's Engraving. Woodworker Gene. Trying to get caught up real quick here. Forget Me Not Woodcrafts in New Jersey. Okay, I think that's all the way down to the bottom list. I'm sorry if I missed everyone, but feel free to jump in there. Hope you all had a great Easter Sunday. We got Rudy from Tifton, Georgia, and Cole chiming in there from Brewer, Maine. So people from all over joining us tonight. Good to see you all here on this holiday weekend. And yeah, so we want to jump into the questions, or you got something else?
Well, I mean, we better go ahead and get them while we can, because you don't ever know how they're going to come in.
We'll get them. We'll get behind otherwise.
Says are my files for jigs adjustable? Just ordered an A20 Pro version 2, and it looks like the feet are shaped slightly different. They could have changed it if there's a version 2, but I mean, yes, the files can be edited. I will say this: if you're going to edit as long as it's just a shape or something that you need to edit, just be careful if you start changing the overall size of pieces, because of course, if you change one piece's size just a little bit, that's going to keep them from being able to marry up like they need to be. I would recommend using the Boolean functions to kind of add or subtract, or if it's just where the feet fit in, that's not a big deal. But yeah, if they've changed the shape of the feet, it may need some adjustments. And without the having the machine here, I don't know how I would go about getting that exactly right. I have done a few modifications through email, but it was with people who obviously were like engineering students and knew how to sketch up a part. So yeah, but they can't. The files can be edited. It's just simply a uh, a light burn file, so you can go in and change the lines or resize things if needed. But yeah, the version 2 is not something that I have had the opportunity to test with it. So
Yeah, it's a tricky thing with subtle changes to equipment and trying to keep up with all of them. So,
yes,
but yeah, so um, you had a busy week. You were on spring
Ooh,
break, right?
Lord. Yes, sir. It has been a very busy week, and I didn't get everything that I wanted to get done. I didn't get to do it. Uh, I had some stuff I was working on in the shop. I had some, other stuff with the family, and it's just it. I didn't get everything done that I wanted to do. We got Brandy's list knocked out, and that was kind of the most important part because we had to get the garden planted. We had to get the porches redone, of course, pressure washing the siding, and just getting all the yucky, winter build up cleaned up. And I had some jobs in the shop that came in and some unexpected like last minute orders and stuff like that. So yeah, it's been very busy. So hopefully the chicken pen I can get around to that in the next few weeks. That's something that I could come home and just work on every afternoon if need to, uh, as long as nothing else comes in. But it is. I found out we're getting to that point to where we're coming up on graduation. We're coming up on
Mm-hmm.
sports awards for baseball teams and stuff like that. So I've kind of got hit with a little bit of that this week, and so people get on Etsy and they start looking for gifts for the seniors for the baseball team as parting gifts or whatever, and graduation. I've got, of course, I'm in with a couple of photographers that do graduation photos, and so as people book their graduation photos, in come the orders for the 30-something inch, sparkly gold painted, silver gold painted letters and stuff like that. Our local arts council was redoing their sign out in front of their shop or whatever, and it was something that some of the people that are members of the arts council had made. The letters, unfortunately, that they got for the sign were made of MDF,
Mm.
and MDF didn't hold up very well. Apparently, the paint came off and a little water got in there, and you know how that goes.
Yep.
So they asked for an order, so I did that on the CNC. It's been busy, but I haven't killed myself or anything. I did get a little more of a tan now. My face actually may have gotten too much. I tried to avoid wearing glasses so that I don't have the raccoon look. But when running the paint sprayer, I had to wear that mask, because of the blowback and stuff. I was really hoping I wasn't going to have like a tan line around here, but it appears that it didn't quite get me there. So good to go. But that's been it. I think you've been at the daily grind all week though, and that's where I'm back to tomorrow. So
Yeah, it's been interesting for me. The
I mean
person I
this.
report to at the college actually took a different job within the state of Minnesota, and so they left on Tuesday, and so now we're in this interim phase, and that means extra work for me at a perfect time when I'm trying to. I kind of realized today, oh, I'm leaving in less than 3 weeks, so
Yeah.
I need to get things ready for all sorts of stuff. So, but yeah, work has kind of really consumed me. Not that I've been working overtime, but you get into these situations where you're all of a sudden trying to, you're covering multiple departments and kind of making sure things are still going, and it's stressful. And so there were some days I came home and I had to take a nap and wasn't as productive as I needed to be. So, but we'll see. Well, I think we kind of got things kind of into a groove, hopefully, and so I'll have some extra time in the shop. With that, I did release a feature film today. It felt like,
Yeah,
um,
that's one of those you got to go ahead and fill up your soft drink for.
yeah, it's well, I do, and I know you do too. We like to take feedback on past videos and try to incorporate that into future ones. And so with the X2S1, I've been doing a few projects with it and haven't really done a full up review. And to be honest, I don't necessarily like just the straight up review things. I try to mix it in with project stuff. And one of the comments I've gotten in the past has been, do you have more of like a getting started? How do I install this laser? How do I, get my settings? And so I kind of took that approach with this video as, the S1 is something that, a lot of people might look at as their first laser. It's marketed as one of those. So the video is really like, okay, XCS 2.0 just came out. Here's this laser that doesn't have a lot of assembly, but there are some certain steps that are unique to it to get it up and running. Let's just kind of walk through that and then walk through, how you would do your first initial couple projects and how you would do some material testing. And that instructional type stuff does get a little bit long. I did try to pare it down as much as I could. And I know sometimes I could probably be a little verbose, but I got it down from, what did I tell you the other day? It was like 2 hours and 45 minutes.
It started out at it started out just shy of 3 hours. And I was like, dude, you better break that into a mini series.
the extended version of Lord of the Rings down to the made for TV version. Yeah. But it is about an hour and 15 minutes. There is some good information in there. And a certain someone makes a little cameo appearance partway through the video.
I saw that.
So hopefully it does well, and I know it's not going to be for everyone, but it hopefully helps out some people that are just getting into it and needing to know, what do I do with this thing? How do I make it work? So, but I am going to continue to have some more project and instructional videos with that one, as also some of the other lasers that I do have in my shop and may or may not be coming. I know people last week about the Atom Stack, and no new news on the 70-watt one. So we're still waiting there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's coming along in the shop again. I'll hopefully be out here a little bit before I have to start heading south here in 2.5 weeks.
Yeah, and we're going to be looking forward to that trip. But yeah, I just saw Cody came into the room there. Somewhere I saw a comment.
Yeah.
So hello, Cody. I don't know if you saw my recent project, but I did do some acrylic this past week. I've been wanting to do it. I could never quite get around to it. It was just like things kept coming up, like you said. You have all these great ideas of what you want to try to do, and acrylic's never really been my strong suit. So I decided that, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and play with it. And one of the things I made, which unfortunately I wanted it close to the CNC. And so what I wound up doing was taking it, and I used some of the tape that I use on the CNC to adhere it to, you can probably see it right there. I mounted it using some of the double-sided tape to the left side of my CNC where I keep up with all my bits. But this is what I ended up coming up with. And I'm waiting on the next three for my set to come in. They were supposed to be here today, but good old USPS didn't drop them off. But that is my little holder I made for a full set of Jenny bits. And so far, I've got one extra downcut Jenny to go in there. But I did a few things with acrylic, and guys, be gentle because I'm not real good at it yet. But most of them turned out okay. It was, like I said, it was kind of a rush job because I had so much other stuff going. I'm coming in here and sanding and putting acrylic in and setting it to the side, letting it dry, and then going and do something else and coming back. The coolest part is my little coaster. I made myself a new coaster for right here at my table, and that's actually a CNC back filled with black, and turned out pretty good. Now I did put an abundance of little feet on the bottom of it because it's dusty out here, and I didn't want it sliding around. But yeah, learning new things.
So those are epoxy filled?
Yes.
Okay. You said acrylic, so I was
well, I don't know what I'm thinking. Epoxy.
I was getting. I'm like, wow, that's some tight inlays on acrylic.
No, that is a poured epoxy.
Yeah,
And
there you go.
like I
Okay.
said, it was just this was actually, if you watched my SageSmart 3030 Pro Ver video, this was a carve I did with it. I just threw it in a box over here. And
Mhm.
then I had some black leftover epoxy. And I'm like, I need something to use it on. And I grabbed this up and I'm like, you know what? Coaster. That'll make a coaster. So that's what I did. Hang on, I got the other one still in here too, I think. And then I got this one. This was from the folks over at the Butterfly Bridge. It's a child advocacy center. They do forensic interviews with kids that have been victims of crime or whatever. And so we partner with them a lot. I do donations for fundraisers and stuff like that for them for their auction. And their graphic, I was just like, you know what? I wonder what their graphic would look like, because it's basically like a butterfly kind of bulioned into a handprint. I was
Mhm.
like, I bet that would be an easy one to backfill. And I had a little scrap piece of quarter sawn oak. So I was like, you know what? CNC project.
Very cool.
And it turned out pretty well. But yeah, just playing around, because as you know, sometimes you get wrapped up doing stuff to just to answer questions and help people with their problems, that sometimes the things that we want to do kind of get pushed to the back. You don't do the
Oh, yeah.
creative, fun things that you want to do. You're too busy trying to do a video to help somebody with this or help somebody with that. So I was like, you know what? I'm carving out myself some time. I wanted the Genie bit holder for the full set because I think it's cool. And I wanted to just play with the epoxy that I picked up over in Georgia, and did a little quick video on it. Like I said, my research was very minimal, because I'm one of those that I just like to get in there and learn it. I like screwing up stuff to learn. So, that's what I did. And Cody, I've actually had quite a few people request that CNC file for that thing, because they said they're fixing to order some Genie bits and they want that holder to put them in. I did not let the logo go with it, but I did make that file public for folks in the video to be able to download that and use the file that I generated for the cutouts and everything. So you probably going to have a lot more orders coming in.
Well, that's on my list as well. I've got the top drawer of my CNC that holds my bits right there, and I used to have a little more order to it, but yeah, since I've ordered more of Cody's bits and have a few more of the Amana tools and others for various things, I need to reorganize that, and I'm going to do a different spin on that and include a couple other tools in them. But
Well,
that's the fun about having these machines is
Well, it's not the only it's not the only one I have.
yeah.
So I have
Oh,
lots of them. This one it holds the Nomad bits that come with the Shapeco and the Speed Tool bits that I was using previously, and I also put a line up here for spare Genies. That way, if I break one or dull one, I can have spare Genies up
mm-hmm.
through here or over here, or whatever. So yeah, and
Yep.
then those big ones that I just don't keep in the containers. That's what this guy's for. So yeah, I have multiples. I need to build myself a drawer on my
Yeah.
table, but I
Yeah.
haven't done it yet. That's
Yep.
a job for another day. I'm working on a bat box right now.
Well, it took me probably a better part of a year to build the drawers on mine. So you got some time yet.
Yeah,
But
but yeah, but it's a rabbit hole, to say the least. But now that I know about how tall the drawer needs to be, I do plan on getting me some hardware and drawing me something out. But like I said, I'm working on building myself a bat cave right now for bats. I've always wanted one of those, and
mm,
I'm about 90% on a CNC file to cut out the parts to
very
make
cool.
myself a little bat box. And I'm gonna mount it right out here outside the shack so that these little bats have a place to live.
Yeah. Well, we got another question here. This one from Josh. He says he's been looking into getting the Onefinity Elite Foreman with the Stiffy and bit sensor to zero it out. Is there anything else I should consider? And should I look into purchasing the 80 millimeter spindle?
Ooh.
Um, so yeah, the bit sensor is great with it. The Stiffy is, I mean, it's good without it, but if you want to add it on there. It's definitely going to add some rigidity, and if you're looking at getting into a larger spindle, yeah, it's a good idea. With the 80 millimeter spindle, you want to make sure that you're going to have the power to run those. You're generally going to need a more dedicated circuit. You might even want to be able to run a 240 volt specific for that. It gives you more options. There are, you can get 110 ones that will deal with it, but you're not going to get the power out of that. So before you jump too far down that, you do want to look into your power considerations where you're going to put it. The big thing I would look at is do some research on your dust collection. The stock boot is okay, but there are a lot of there's a lot of aftermarket ones out there that'll give you a lot of flexibility, whether you want your dust coming out the back, you want a 4-inch hose off a dust collector, if you want a more slender design, if you're putting in an enclosure, there's some good options out there. Pone CNC makes a number of them. There's probably the most favored one that I see in the forums is I believe it's the Nighthawk. And then there's someone on the Facebook group out there that's been kind of creating a new design that has kind of a split suction. It's got 2 clear tubes that come up the sides. He's posted a few videos of it working, and it'll be interesting to see. But dust collection is one I'd look a lot at before you get too down, too locked into what you're purchasing. So either way, yeah, I would, if you've got the money and you want to get it set up with it right away, you're probably going to enjoy a spindle. Yeah, a lot of people get by with the trim routers. I've been getting by with mine for a while. I do have a water cooled spindle setup that I just haven't put on there yet. I'm hoping to do that this summer. For me, it's just the challenge of putting it together and getting on there, but they do run quieter and tend to be a little bit cleaner because they're not sucking air in. They're not blowing as much air in. Even the air cooled ones are better at moving the air through them without blowing it out everywhere. So, but I also wouldn't get too crazy with buying a lot of accessories until you get it in and start playing with it. You may find there's some things on it that you want to do differently. So, but that's a great option. I'm actually looking at doing the upgrade of mine to the Elite. We'll see. I've got a few other things I probably should pay for first. Something about, I think they call them a mini split. Someone has told me I should maybe look into. But we're going to get a little sound demonstration from David here on his.
Well, I don't have any wood in there, but I just got through cutting out a sign a little while ago, so I got the engrave on the sign set to run. But that's I can move the mic around here a little bit further. But that's the spindle with the dust collection and everything running right there. So it's nowhere near, and that's one thing I will say. The loudest part of this CNC now is the bit churning through the material. I can't hardly hear the dust collection. The singing of the steppers is louder than the spindle or the dust collector at this point. And that's that robotic sound that you hear when they change direction. But I'm really happy with it. And I am running the Shopsmith dust collection system. It's one of the more expensive dust collection systems that I've ever used. But now that I've had it for a couple of weeks and running it, it's definitely worth it for hearing, as well as it picks up chips really, really well. So let me stop that right quick. So we ain't got to sit here. I don't know how loud it is on y'all's end. It shouldn't be too bad.
It's not terrible. I mean, we can still hear you over it. And, definitely hear that it's running. But yeah, a dust collection system on a CNC is definitely worth looking into. You can get by with a shop vac. I would definitely recommend a Cyclone. As a matter of fact, I've been running the Oneida Cyclone on a shop vac for my current setup. On my older one, I was able to either use the dust collector or a standalone shop vac on a Cyclone, and they do a decent job. But it's hard to beat the airflow of a dust collector. So. Yeah, Cody, the master controller, all the options. I mean, I came from using Mach 3 on my first machine, and so that's pretty powerful, but it doesn't even have necessarily all the control and the feedback that the Masso does. Going to this build bot I saw on the Onefinity, which is great because it does what it needs to do, but I miss some of the flexibility and the extra control that you get. So that's kind of my big driver there is getting some of those fine tuning controls back in on it. So, oh, it's so much quieter now.
I mean, it is quieter, but I really wish I had a router over there for you to listen to it, because when I came from using the Makita router to using that spindle, it was like, wow,
Hmm.
this is different. Now, like I said, coming out of the gate, depending on your budget, it may be something that you decide to hold off on and invest in other peripherals, like you said, such as a good dust collection or whatever, because that's shop vacs are horrific for dust collection. I've got my little cleanup vac, which is a rigid, just a small, I think it's like a 10-gallon rigid that I use for, cleaning up parts and stuff before I go moving them and throwing all the chips, because the chips do accumulate around the tabs. Everywhere else, this system pretty much pulls all of them out, but around the tabs, I'll still have like little puddles of chips. So I try to get those off there before I go to moving things around.
Yeah. Well, I mean, shop vacs, they tend to have those pleated filters on them, and those get clogged up with fine dust really quickly, and so that reduces your flow. And they are a smaller pipe, and they're going for higher speed, higher pressure than as opposed to maybe moving a lot of air. So
Yeah.
they do work, and that's why I recommend getting a cyclone separator so that your filter doesn't get clogged up so much. As a matter of fact, if you got a good cyclone on it, you can actually remove that filter, and then the shop vac's gonna, it shouldn't kick any dust through because the cyclone should be collecting it, and then it won't reduce its efficiency because of that filter getting clogged up.
Yeah. There's a good question for you. I'm not sure I'm understanding. Uh, how, how do you fill nail holes in hard plank? I don't know what we're talking
Well,
about exactly.
um, it depends on the project and such. What a lot of people will do is you you take your rotary sander, you put the little dust bag on it, and you sand the material to get some fine dust that matches that wood, and then you mix that in with a little bit of wood glue, fill in your nail holes, and then you can sand that down, and then that wood dust from the actual board should be a pretty close color match and be hidden pretty well. Now, most of the time, I'm trying to use pin nails, so they're very fine, so they're hard to see to begin with, and so there I might even just sand over it to get a little sand dust pack in there, maybe get a little CA glue down in there, and let that um, fill in. Um, but a lot of other times, I'll go the full route of you countersink it and drill. Get yourself a plug cutter, take some of your wood, and make some plugs out of the same one. Try to get the grain pretty close, and then you just glue those down and cut them flush, sand them, and they almost disappear. But um, if
Oh, you're
it's
talking about a hardy board. Okay, I got you.
yeah, outside of that, it depends on if you depends on the material. Some of them have like a finer grain or a more textured grain, and that makes it a little bit harder. But
Yeah, I don't fool with a lot of that. I know what you're talking about now. You're talking about the hardy board, which is it's basically like imitation wood grain
yeah,
panels that goes on the outside of houses. Yeah, I haven't dealt with a whole lot of that. Like I said, you see what's on my walls here. I do board and batten mostly, and with board and batten, you put it up, you put the screws in the middle so that the wood can expand, and you rock it. Everything that I've built here, other than like dog houses and stuff like that, that's what I've used, um, and tin. So, yeah, not big into that kind of construction. I got a
I mean,
brother-in-law I could
if
call and
it's
ask that question too, but
if it's hardy plank like siding like that, then I might I would try. Hopefully, it's painted. I would try to match paint, and I would just get some probably just fill it in with some painter's caulk, or well, I guess
That's
if
what I
it's
was thinking.
exterior, there's I was talking to the facilities guys. They were giving me a good recommendation on more of an exterior that's more flexible. But yeah, and then I would just kind of touch up the paint over it with that.
Yeah. Uh, so far, Gerard, yeah. Uh, I've only run MDF when I was surfacing the machine, but that was actually one of the first uh, jobs that I did once I got the new dust collection system. Because up until that point, I hadn't I hadn't completely set the machine up. I'm not gonna lie. I was playing with it, thinking that I was gonna probably mess the cutting surface up enough that I would need to surface it. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna wait, do some rough projects, and then I'll surface it later. But it does really well. Right now, the only real dust problem that I'm having in here is, of course, like the miter saw, the router table. Occasionally, I've got the router table set up with chip extraction, but like right now, I use a flush cut bit to trim off the tabs off the CNC projects, and so I've kind of moved my little dust chute back too far, so I get a little bit of dust off of that. But all in all, the dust situation has gotten a lot better since I got the new machine. As far as the dust boot that's on the Shapeco, I've got it's the fixed dust boot, so it doesn't go up and down with the bit, which is a lot more convenient when you're doing thick cuts. Because if you're doing thick cuts, you can't let the boot down, but to the top of where the bit's going to be when it's cutting, or it puts pressure upwards, and like it'll make the little bristles get caught in the bits if you're not careful, and all kinds of bad stuff. So I like the fixed better. I do have the attached one as well, but like I said, so far the fixed has kind of been my go-to. I paid the extra money for that thing. I figure I might as well use it. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. Another question here from Rough Rider Laser. Designing a 6-foot exhaust using 4-inch PVC, mainly for 2 Rolly MK2s coming in at 45 degrees. Should I remove the fans from the MK2s? Yeah, depending on the inline fan you have, and if it's only a 6-foot run, your inline fan, hopefully you have that as close to your outlet as possible, because you want it pulling as far as it can rather than pushing the air. Your fans included on the cases are generally going to be running at a lower power, and so when they're doing that, and the way an electric motor runs, it kind of just wants to spin at a constant speed. So it's actually going to cause resistance if the air pulling from the fan is moving faster than that. So it's actually going to slow things down. So I would remove them. I would make that as clean as possible, make your bends as clean as possible, and you'll probably see an improvement over leaving them in there. I took the one out of my P2 when I did my exhaust setup. I haven't looked into the S1 as closely to see how easily that can be removed. I'd like to get that one out of there, just so that it's not impeding the flow. But on any of the others, yeah, I try to not have any of those little small computer fan type things in there.
Agreed. Why is it? Huh. My little hide button is disappeared. Well, oh, there we go. Yeah, it was wanting me to hide the comment altogether. But yeah, I don't like with mine. I've just got mine vented up, over, and it runs up through there, and then out maybe 6 feet through the wall. And I've got the little dryer vent louver on the outside, and I'm running the internal fan for that one. So it's still doing a really good job even with that length of push. But if you're going to be running 2 of them, it wouldn't be a bad idea if you're going to be setting them up permanently for sure.
Yeah, and it's good that you have 45-degree bends. 90 degrees, kind of like yours is there. That'll really slow down and disrupt the airflow. So if you're seeing that you have issues, if you're not having issues, great. If you're seeing you have issues, try to shorten the pipe as best you can. Try to have it as kind of smooth of turns as possible, rather than real sharp bends. And sometimes you don't necessarily need to upgrade the fans. You just need to clean up your ductwork, make sure it's nice, clean shot. But if it's a good fan on there, it'll kind of overcome some of that and give you a little bit of leeway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's hard to run a hose through your room using only 45-degree angles unless you've got like 50 feet to turn it around. It's like trying to turn around a semi truck.
Yeah, well, and that's you know,
that one is also used with my testing table. I take it loose from or I can use it with that guy or any other machine. So
you know,
it's flexible.
It comes down to, after you've used your machines a little bit, you start going, okay, I can come up with a better layout here, and sometimes it means moving machines closer to power, or in this case, closer to your outlet for air. Maybe you got to have it by a window because you can't just poke a hole in every wall. So try to think about your layout as best you can. If you have the flexibility of maybe moving the machine closer to something will help. Because otherwise you can start investing in bigger fans and more piping and such, and you'll have incremental increases versus just trying to make it a more efficient run. Here's a question before it gets too far away from us. Todd's asking, he's got an X-Tool D1 Pro 20 watt, trying to get settings of watch videos, just don't know where to start with my settings for a test card. So depends on if you're cutting or engraving, and then also it's going to depend on the type of material. I'm thinking as far as cutting, if you're going with like 1/8 inch or 3mm material, I would go from probably, I don't know, 7 or 8 millimeters a second on up to 12 to 14 might be, that's probably going to be a little high for the range. You could probably go from actually 5 to 10, start there on your cutting for 1/8 inch material and see how it does. If you've got a good setup, good air, and maybe some lightweight material, you might need to tweak it up from there. But I would start there. As far as engraving with a 20 watt, I'm probably not going to go under about 150 millimeters a second. 100, you start getting a lot of charring and higher power.
It depends on the look you're going for and your air assist setup. The 20 watt machines, if I was going for like oak, trying to get a deep dark burn, I would run it down to 100. But I was also running air assist and tweaking the focus to get a blacker burn so that I get a little contrast. So I definitely wouldn't go below 100 for an engrave, even on some of the harder materials like cherry, oak, and maple.
So this is from a 40 watt I just did, and you can see at 200 millimeters a second, and this is like a birch veneer plywood. You're getting a pretty deep engrave, but you're also getting a lot of this kind of stuff you're going to have to clean up. It's sticking with a lot of residue, and actually on this one that's 200 and 100, you can actually see, I don't know if I can get it to reflect off there, but there's definitely some sticky residue at the top. And so for me, unless I'm needing that deep burn and I'm going to be good sanding this, I'm going to try to go, adjust my settings from there, maybe go a little faster and get less of that. So I know a lot of people ask, how do you interpret this? And, the cut ones are pretty straightforward. Where it cuts and clean drops, that's where you want it. Engraving, it really depends on what you're looking for, because you might be, if you're doing a photo one, you want a nice gradient from just barely showing up to a dark. Whereas if you're doing vector engraves, you might be going for part of your photo, you want a lighter color, and maybe part of it, you want a darker one. So you're going to maybe set that up in two different ones. But with this type of grid, you'd be able to tell, okay, to get this dark, deep burn, I got to go slower and hotter. But also just to get a lighter color, I can back it off. So if anything else, just don't go too slow. That's where you're going to start running into problems with fires and burning. You start fast, you're not getting the results you want. You can slowly back off from there, and use that material test array tool that's in XCS or Lightburn, and that'll help you.
Hey, have you done any speed tests since the last Lightburn update, by chance?
No, not specifically. I got my S1 set up for Lightburn, but I was focusing on XCS for this first one, and so I'm going to do that, and I want to pull out another one of my other machines to do some, because I have some
Well,
stuff to do with them.
if this happens to you, don't be alarmed because it didn't. It has never happened to me before. Out of the hundreds of speed tests that I've done, but I had a project come in and I had to run some speed tests in Lightburn. And yes, I set everything up properly, but the numbers are not engraving. So this was for a project that I had to do for the baseball team, and yeah, so I was trying to find my laser engraving setting for this birch plywood, and so that's what I ended up getting. And
Interesting.
I didn't have time because it was one of those rush orders. I didn't have time to go in there and figure out why it was doing it. I just, I knew what my settings were, and I just found the
Yeah.
setting and
Now,
made my adjustments. And this was my second test, and then I'm like, okay, that works, and I moved on. But yeah, even
when
in
you
the
say
preview, when you preview it, it shows no numbers.
when you say the latest version, now are you running the beta 1.6 or are you talking about 1.506
Let
or
me
whatever is out now?
let me look. Let me look. See, 1.5.06.
Okay. Um, I take that back. I did run some tests on the com marker using that. Just this past, last weekend, I think. And I was getting the labels on there, but now I'm kind of curious. I kind of almost want to fire up the S1 and test it.
Okay, well, it may be something with this because the tool looks different. If I open some of my older tools, and I just did this because I was like, let me check, make sure. Some of my older tools that I've saved, they're actually working. So let me look and make sure I didn't mess something up on the lettering, on the edit, on the text. Uh, no, 100% power, 127. Yeah, I mean everything's right. So I don't know if it's something because this is a recent speed and power test that I've done, but yeah, it is definitely not turning out the way that it's supposed to. Even in preview, it's not showing the numbers. So yeah, I'll have to investigate into that and see what it is. It's never happened to me before. With the older files that I have saved, if I open them right now, the numbers are on all of those. But I had to create a new one for. Well, no, there's not on that one.
So
So
even in the preview, it's not coming up for you.
yeah, hang on. I got you right here. Let me show you. This is one of my older ones. This is like a 10-watt engrave test. All right, so if I go up to a 30-watt cut test, these are ones I've used before. All right, there it is. I have not used this speed power test in a while, but that's the preview, and I've used it before, and it worked perfectly fine. Matter of fact, here is 30-watt tumbler test. We just used this one the other day when Klein was over here to do his tumblers, which that one is actually working. It's some of them will work, some of them won't. It's got to be something in and if you look that one, but if you go to the text settings, 100% power or 100% speed, 80% power. I mean, everything's there unless I don't know. It's an anomaly, and I've got to figure it out. But it only started after this last update to 1.506. But yeah, it was a bit
Well,
of a thorn in my rear the other day when I was trying to rush that job out, and I was like, "Why is my speed test not working?" So
so I've got 1.506, and I don't know, just random numbers in here,
create a new one.
but it's there. All right. Well, I mean, I can even, this is kind of just the default one. So let's see here. We'll change this to.
Like I said, it may be a bug in my machine. Maybe I need a reboot. But I restart my computer every morning or when I come out here. So,
Changing numbers.
but anyway, if it
Yeah.
happens, I don't know.
So in your edit text settings,
Everything's on. Everything was on.
Including the output button.
I mean, I can double check, but yeah, I'm pretty sure I looked at all that. But anyway, it was just an anomaly because a lot of these speed tests I have used before. And yeah, I mean, it's using a blue layer. I wonder if it's pulling from the layers. But yeah, I mean, wait a minute. Nope. Yeah, the blue layer. Okay, that's what it is. It's using that darn blue layer, and I had the blue layer turned off. No, still not doing it. Not sure what is going on here.
Did you pay your Lightburn tax?
I'm gonna play around with it and figure it out, but yeah, edit text,
So
output. Okay, yeah, I think that may have been what it was because now that I think about it, I bet it was pulling that blue layer. I did use the blue layer to do a framing line. And I bet when I turned that blue layer off, that's what did it. Because that fixed it. That's what it was. The output, I don't know why that blue layer. Apparently, it pulled it from the layers over to the right. When I was setting that up, I instead of a tool line, I used the little blue line. Okay, so I messed myself up. See? It happens.
it does. Yeah, it does like to pull in some of the settings from those layers. So something to watch out for. But I know Hobo was having issues with the docking feature where he has to be within the work area, and other people were noting the same thing, which works for me inside or outside the work area. But so occasionally there can be something that trips it up, and that's the with Lightburn, there's a lot of different ways to do things. They give you a lot of flexibility to do things and change settings. That's the benefit. That's also the curse. Because
Yeah.
you could screw up a setting somewhere, and now you have a bunch of options to go back through and look to see where it's at. So
Yeah, I guess that's what happened was because, like I said, when I turned that line off, because if you look, well, you can't see nothing over there right now. I got the lights turned off, but I did a little short where I took and burnt just a little etched line in the piece of wood, and I placed the project on that burned line. Well, once I went to run the design, I cut the blue layer off, and when I did, it killed the text. Is what happened. So I'm gonna have to make sure I don't use that blue line for that anymore. I'll have to use one of the ones at the very end that I never use.
right, yeah, I
But
try
yeah,
to.
that's exactly what happened. I messed it up myself, but I worked through it. I got the projects done. They turned out good. It was just, whew, it was
Yeah.
a mess. But it is really dark in here. See if that fixes it. Yeah, you can see that's the line that I turned off right there. Whoa, bright lights. That's the line that I turned off. And when I turned that off, it turned my text off in the speed test.
Yeah,
I did not realize those two were codependent, but apparently they are.
So Mr. Rogers Laborhood is asking thoughts on XCS 2.0 beta. So they've released it for everyone. I don't know if they're still calling it. I mean, you download it and it still is labeled as beta, I believe, on the file. But they've kind of put it out in the wild for everyone to use. And so I actually just used it for my S1 video that I launched today to kind of give people a bit of an overview of using it. The biggest feature that I really like is you can now open up multiple tabs within XCS. So whether you want to work on multiple files while one's working on the laser, you can jump to another. Or if you have multiple Xtool machines and want to run them all at once, you can now do that. So that's probably one of the biggest features. A little frustration is they've moved a lot of things around. And so I'm having to kind of relearn the software and where things are at. So I need to play with it a little bit more to really say what features I'm using. They did include now a node edit feature, which is going to be great. They have an offset feature, which is okay. I really wish they would put in a kerf offset option like Lightburn has. That's one thing in my mind that's really holding it back, in that, every laser is slightly different. And so you pull in files from someone else. If they have it just set at a 1/4 inch material and things are just exactly a 1/4 inch, well, you need to do your offset to get, real tight fitting features there. So I plan on playing with it a little bit more, mixing it in with Lightburn as much so I can kind of get a better feel for it before I really say yay or nay on, is XCS 2.0 better or is it just different? It is better in that it can be a little more flexible with the machines, but it's great software. If you're a beginner, it makes things easier, and they keep expanding it to do more things. Lightburn is more full featured, and like I just mentioned, there's a lot of options that you can tweak, but that can also screw you up. So I like having the ability to really tweak the files and tweak the output. Lightburn, if you've never dug into the optimization, you can really get down there to tell the laser exactly what order to do your operations, where XCS kind of keeps that to, well, we're going to figure out on our own what we think is best at this point. So you can do a little bit with layers in XCS, but anyway, more to come on that as I play with it some.
Yeah. DJS is asking, what do you guys think? Should I wait and get the 40-watt MK3 XL or get an X-Tool S1? Really like the new Creative Space 2.0 software for X-Tool. I tried to cover that in a video today. That's one of those things that, to me, that's a decision that you need to make. If you like XCS, then you might want to get a machine that works with XCS. If you don't like it, then those are all things to consider. I think either machine, if the work area is suitable to your needs, I think either machine would be fine. I haven't seen the full specs on the new MK3, I guess it'll be called, but I don't doubt that it'll be a good machine. It's just I don't know what the work area comparison would be and all that, so it's kind of hard to say for sure until you know what the work dimensions are going to be.
Well, and depending on how quickly you need the laser, I believe the MK3 didn't he say Christmas on that?
Yeah, it was going to be a while.
So you might be waiting a while to get that MK3, especially the XL. So, if you're wanting something sooner than later, if you've got plans to work with it or whatnot, you might be waiting a while on that one for them to get it to where they want it and to be able to release it. So, that could enter into your equation as well.
Yeah,
but it does sound very interesting. I'd love to, especially that 16 by 24 size. I mean, it could be a little wider, but I think that's a nice sweet spot for a size.
I was just say that's a good size. Norbert, I'm pretty sure we're both running Windows. I do have a MacBook Pro in the house that Brandy uses, that I do have Lightburn on it that she uses to make files with sometimes playing around. But primarily I use Windows just because it works with everything really easy.
Yeah, I have run it on Mac, but while you do get 2/3 installs of Lightburn and you can move them around, you only have so many reactivations before they kind of say, all right, hold up. So I don't like activating and deactivating it too often to jump onto the Mac version. So I run primarily the Windows version on my 3 locations.
Yeah. I think Dennis has got a question. Dennis says, we live in the area of West Virginia where we have trouble with the power going out. We have a generator, but about 20 to 30 seconds before it kicks in. How would that affect the laser while burning a project? The simple answer is, if you're on a USB connection and you're running it from a computer through Lightburn, through USB to the laser, it's going to break the connection more than likely, and it's going to stop mid-job when that connection goes away to that laser. It's going to be stuck. There are machines that are coming out now that advertise If you use an offline controller and you do file transfer to an SD card or a thumb drive, they do have power failure recovery. But in my opinion, every machine in this shop, the CNC, all of these machines, the only two that I don't, and it's just because I don't have another one. These two machines are the only two machines in my shop that are not running on a battery backup. I use the CyberPower 1000 VA AVR battery backup, which is basically a UPS power supply for computers. I could go outside right now and trip my main breaker. This computer that runs my lasers, as well as all my lasers, will maintain power continually, uninterrupted. Nothing changes. Now, keep in mind, this is only going to last for a few minutes. So, because I've got so much running on it, it's not going to last long. But in this situation to where the power goes out or completely, or there's a little flicker, flickers are no problem at all. If it goes out and stays out for 30 45 minutes, that could turn into a potential problem if it's a really long engrave. But luckily I don't have a big problem with that, and you could get even bigger battery backups. But if you're on a generator and all you need is for it to carry you 30 seconds, even these little small, like I said, I think this one's $120 something on Amazon. It'll carry you well past that 20 or 30 seconds that you need. And the good thing I like about these, the Cyber Powers, is if in the event, because I've actually went through some batteries, the battery goes bad in it, you can go on Amazon, order a replacement battery, and it's literally takes 5 minutes to swap that battery out, put a new one in it, and you're back up and going for $20 as opposed to having to buy a brand new one at 125 or so. Do you got it pulled up? I seen you over there looking around. Do you got
No,
you got? Oh, okay.
I don't have a link for that. The other side of that is most UPSs will also do voltage kind of filtering, and so it'll almost as bad as a blackout as a brownout that can do a lot of damage to equipment as well. And so most UPSs will have that kind of voltage filtering where it keeps it kind of at a constant state, even on just your normal wall power. You'd be surprised. If you've got like if you're pushing your panel and you turn on a high power device, your AC compressor kicks in, or you've got a table saw or something that has a lot of initial amps to get it spinning, you might see that kind of dimming or flickering of lights. That can be doing a lot of damage to the electronics in your house. And so having, first off, maybe addressing that situation would be good, but putting a UPS in line that has that voltage filtering would be good, especially in this situation. You need it to kind of take over. It's going to keep it from dropping. It'll let it pass over into the new one as well. So it's definitely a good investment. Even just for your computers at home. I especially working at home, I've got my internet router, I got my wireless router, I got my main computer hooked up on that. So in case the power goes out, I can finish what I'm doing. They do get spendy if you're going to try to run a long time for a lot of equipment, but a lot of these, a lot of our lasers and such, they don't draw a whole lot of power. Your fan is probably pulling as much as the laser itself. So you can run a little while on it, and then even portably, you look at some of they call them solar generators. They're the battery units that have the inverters in them that you can plug in with solar panels or charge in the walls. Some of them also have that UPS unit built into them as well. So something to consider, maybe running your laser on is one of those units to act as UPS, and then if you are going to a lot of shows, then you can bring it along and have your power source. So
Yeah, I've got one mounted on my portable clack shack, my table that I take to events. And, in the event that I don't want to run the generator, or I can't run the generator, or if somebody wants to trip over an extension cord or unplug mine to plug theirs in or whatever, it doesn't kill everything on my table. Now, this Cyber Power one I've got here, when I went to my Amazon cart, I realized they discontinued this particular model, but the link in the description is the one that I bought when I did the CNC table. It's the newer version of this 1000 VA But they're both basically the same price. But apparently Amazon's discontinued the one that I've got over here, which this one's on its second battery. I think the ones in the house, I got two of them in the house. I think both of those are on their second batteries as well. Uh, but I've had some of them. I've had 5 years. Uh, I just keep putting new batteries in them, and that's why I keep buying the same one. Is because I know the process for changing the battery out with those machines. But yeah, it's good to have for any situation, as well as, like you mentioned, a power surge. You know, somebody hits a power pole, lightning hits down the street. A UPS is a sacrificial lamb, so to speak, to keep all that electricity from running through your computers, your networks set up, as well as your lasers and stuff. So, doo-doo-doo. But that's about
Yeah,
it.
I've got a CyberPower one on my workstation and router and such inside, but I splurged and got the 1,000 watt 1500 VA version,
Mm,
so it runs it a little bit longer.
I would imagine, especially if it's just running network stuff.
Well, but I bought it back in 2017, so I think it was a little bit cheaper. Yeah, I got a deal on it. It was 120 bucks then. It's now 220. So
Oh, I was gonna say if you got it for 120, you stole that because they're
yeah,
189 right now. Well, I just looked at the
yeah,
one that I bought.
yeah, they're not cheap.
Oh, Brandon's asking any options on an external hard drive, 1 terabyte or 2 terabyte. Well, that kind of depends on what you're doing with it and how much money you want to spend. If you're just saving Lightburn stuff to it and not image files or video, it's going to take you a while to fill up a 1 terabyte.
Yeah, and it depends on what your use for it is. Um, if you're wanting to transfer files from one computer to another, and they're bigger files, it's a good solution. But as far as backing up, if you have an external hard drive attached to your computer and it gets hit with a virus or something else, it can take out that external hard drive as well. I actually pay for cloud storage, and I back up most of my Lightburn or other design files there, which then also allows me to transfer from one computer to another fairly quickly, because those don't take a long time to upload. Now, backing up raw video files, that I don't do. I do that more locally. And then I have a secondary internal hard drive. Even on my laptop, I have a secondary internal hard drive. I dump them there. And for me, I kind of stick with the mainstays. USB 3, Western Digital, or Seagate are kind of the ones I tend to look at. But I don't use those as much as others now that I've got that cloud storage. And honestly, after a while, I kind of just junk my older video files, because I'll save the end cut, the overall video I've made, but after a while I just I dump the raw video files because I'm done with them. So
Well, I run on this machine right here. I'm running a Samsung SSD for like anything having to do with media, and I do have my computer is a bit overkill. Uh, it has the capability, which I'm only running right now. I'm only running 4 hard drives on it, which one of them is a RAID that has 8 terabytes of storage, and then I've got 4 other drives that do different things on the machine. But typically, I would say, unless you're editing a lot of video, anything over about 2 terabytes, it's going to take you a while to fill that up with files and pictures and photos and stuff. Like, you're going to have an astronomical amount of photos and Lightburn files to fill up a 2 terabyte hard drive.
yep.
My entire, let me see what the size of my entire directory is right now for my laser files. Oh, that's going to take a minute to calculate on the network.
You got me curious too.
Now I can tell you relatively quick what my my completed videos folder, the size of it. That guy is huge. It's 1.36 terabytes, and that's every video I've made. in the past year and a half or so.
So my raw laser files folder, which this goes back 8 years, and it's got well over 2,000 files in it. It's only 3.6 gig. So, and there's duplicates in there, I'm sure.
Yeah, mine's sitting at 327 megabytes, and
Yeah.
that's 2 years worth of, 2.5 years worth of collection
Yep.
in my laser files folder. That's machine setup configuration files, the stuff that comes with the machines, backups of all my Lightburn configurations, all of that.
Along the lines of technology and computers, Greg Wilson, Nature Photography, is asking, will I be able to use a laptop for my 20-watt Rolly running Lightburn? You should be able to. It depends on what else you want to do with it, and also depends on the laptop. I mean, if you've got, I mean, I was running Lightburn up until about a year ago on an old Dell. I mean, that thing was probably 8 years old. Now, granted, at the time when it was brand new, it was like a Dell Precision. It was a nicer laptop, but it was running Windows 7. It had 8 gigs of RAM. It had the old platter-based hard drive in it. You know, there was nothing special about it. Lightburn in and of itself does not take a whole lot of computing power, but it likes to have a stable computer running with it. So I wouldn't have a problem. I mean, if you've got any sort of recent laptop in, you know, the past 3 years, now it's not going to run on a Chromebook, and you know, your bottom of the barrel bought at Walmart Black Friday $99 special laptop might not be the one for you. But your typical laptop these days should not have a problem running Lightburn. You do want to be mindful of the power settings, though. They do tend to have a lot of things to shut things down when it doesn't think they're in use. So you do want to go in and check your power saving features and turn most of them off, unless you tell the computer to turn off. And that, you know, that's digging down into like your USB ports as well to make sure those don't turn off. But no, Lightburn is a pretty clean software. It does it, you know, it'll run some of the simulation stuff that it does on previews might run a little chunky, and some of the resolution stuff might get a little funny on some displays that might be out of normal. But in general, you shouldn't have a problem with it.
Yeah. ET, there is to an extent. You start getting up into 7-10 terabyte storage stuff, getting into NASs and stuff like that. The price per terabyte goes up exponentially. So in some situations, I don't see somebody that'll, you know, in their lifetime will never fill up a 1 terabyte, spending the extra money to get a 7 terabyte. But I feel you. I'm overkill from the word go. Like I said, my computer has a RAID built into it with 3 hot swap bays and 2 cold swap bays. So I can actually pull a tray out of my computer. And I think I got them all locked, but I can actually pull a tray out of my computer and swap the hard drive out if I need to. So I mean, but it's expensive. You don't always want that. I use network storage for a lot of my files because I build files in the house sometimes, save them to that central location that's hooked to my network, and then I can access them from here. Also, with my CNC, I build my files here. I have a folder over on the CNC computer that I send them to, and I execute them from over there. So, yeah, and I'll tell you, I went on to Amazon and bought a Dell refurbished mini PC the other day for $125. It came with Windows 10 Pro, I think, and a keyboard and mouse for $125, and that's what I'm running over there, and it works great. It's actually a pretty peppy little computer considering all I use it for is running the CNC or running the S1 because I've got XCS on it and the S1's on that side of the shop. So that's the one that I can actually deploy it, which now I could do 2 machines with this computer, but before I would set the S1 up on that one and run it from over there. So it doesn't take a whole lot of computing power to run any of these machines. And if you start trying to edit video or photos, then that's when it's going to tell on you.
All right. Well, I'm seeing a little chatter about it running on Chromebooks. As far as I understand, the
Lightburn?
average user is going to struggle running it on a Chromebook. You
Running
have to have the
Lightburn?
right, yeah. You have to have a Chromebook with the right processor, and I believe you still have to like activate developer mode, and basically you're kind of running it more in Linux. But I haven't tried it in a while, and my Chromebook is not as new as some. But if you're a power user and you want to run it on a Chromebook, sure. But if you're the average person who maybe just picked one up, I don't know that it's the route you want to go.
According to the forums, they're saying it's got to be a Intel i3 or i5 CPU. I don't know of many Chromebooks that's gonna. I mean, maybe so. It would have to be a higher end Chromebook, I would imagine. But according to Lightburn, it is not officially supported. So yeah, that's gonna be more like a jailbreak type scenario. I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah, you don't need a super powerful computer to run Lightburn. So, it it's one of those things that even if you're used to Chromebook or maybe you're used to a Mac, might not be bad to just pick up an inexpensive dedicated PC for running your CNC/lasers with it. So, but you're gonna fire up your camera?
Somebody said it would be nice to see what we had in front of us when we're doing the lives. So I mean, I'm upside down. Hang on, guys.
Does this mean we have to show our desk clutter too? All right, let me see if I can get this. Let me see if I can get this working.
There we go. How's that? Is that a better view? Can you still hear me? I'm guessing.
Yeah, we can hear
Okay.
you.
I think so. I didn't change my mic feed. Is that a better view? Some people say this is my best side.
All right. I don't know how far I can back up here, but
Oh, somebody needs to work on some cable management over there.
it's just temporary still. All right. All right. So I got blinding light there. I've got blinding light there. I think the computer and two mix match monitors.
Yeah.
And then you get our Stream Deck panel. We got the audio panel, which I'm probably not picking up very well because I'm way back here. And then camera staring at me in the face that sticks out, a ways from the monitors.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I got a Logitech HD here, Logitech HD here, and then I got my Elgato in the middle. I don't have either one of the Logitechs connected. Those are the ones that when you see my videos and I have a camera sitting to the side of the machine, I use those guys. This one right here I use a lot. This is my little Logitech. This is actually what came with my Elgato mic, but it had the adapter so you could put the webcam on there, and this little guy pivots and does all kinds of neat stuff. So this is kind of my B-roll camera, and it's a little dusty, but I just keep them up here on the shelves. So if you ever come in here and see like 4 cameras staring at you, they're not recording. Most of them aren't even plugged up. But yeah, it's a mess. It's dusty.
Yeah, Martin, I sometimes have to go side to side to see the very, very inside of it. Like I said, this is temporary. Once I settle on my arrangement here, I do actually hope to wall mount the monitors and then get the camera, kind of more, get them separated a little bit more out, so that way. But like the shop, it's kind of a work in progress. The things always move around. But hey, that's why we're makers. We like to just fiddle and play.
Well, it's tough sometimes having a computer workstation in your shop because you got other stuff going on. And I know me and you, when we first started doing these lives, man, it was like every week something didn't work because we were constantly having to move everything around. and it's came a long way since then. So I'm really,
Mm-hmm.
but oh, hey, look, I got it working. All right, hang on, let me show you guys. All right, so this is kind of my cluttered mess right here. All right, there's the cameras, the speakers. I got some nice Logitech speakers. Uh, those are really good for listening to Steve. I got a subwoofer over there. Uh, then of course you got to have the SD card reader. There's the UPS that runs everything. I got my Stream Deck. This is where I switch from the different camera views or the screen or whatever. Uh, there's my notepad. Can't go anywhere without that. But yeah. Oh, and there's Echo. Say hello, Echo. But anyway, he didn't say it. But that's it. Oh, and the microphone. It's mounted like right here so that it can swivel and do this cool stuff. But that's it. And there's some money right there. That was a partial payment for a job that I haven't invoiced out yet. And just random stuff. Lots of dust. My camera is a little better strategically placed. That's my main camera right there. So,
Yeah, well, you've got yours top and bottom, and so that makes it a little bit easier. Like,
well, I can't go anywhere else. You seen how the size of this spot? I mean, I literally, if I stick my elbows out, I won't fit. I've got, this is my little computer workstation is 34 3/4 inches, and I'm not a small guy, so it's not a lot of room. But I make it work. I spend a lot of time here. I've got calluses on my elbows from this little counter that I made, which needs a facelift. But that's it. It's
mm-hmm.
nothing fancy. It's probably not as fancy as most everybody watching the video. You guys' shops are clean and neat. You got to come in here with, look, what? Let me wipe the top of my UPS. All right, look at that. That is fine sanding dust right there. That stuff is everywhere.
Yeah, well, it's the stuff that's over to these sides that you can't see where we're hiding all that stuff.
Norbert, yeah, I think I added them to my Amazon shop. As far as the microphone goes, the arm and the didn't you get the same one, Steve?
No,
You got a
no,
link?
mine's different. Mine's an XLR microphone going into that mixer I showed.
Oh yeah, yeah. I forgot you got the fancy stuff.
Yeah, and I can. I'm not sure. I think this one will even auto tune me, but we'll save that for another day.
Oh, did I mention the other day? I've got something. I figured out what we're going to do when you come down here. I bought a PA system the other day for events and stuff that has a microphone and a mixer and everything. And I found out that you can actually do karaoke on it because it Bluetooths to your iPad. So we can have karaoke at the Clack Shack starring Steve Mills.
It's gonna be a short show.
I felt like it would be a good one. I think people would watch. Who would watch Steve sing karaoke? How many people want to see Steve sing karaoke? We could set it up. We could make it look like it was a honky tonk in here, and we could just have Steve doing karaoke in the Clack Shack. Who's with me? Who thinks that's a good idea?
You know
All right,
I have. You know I have voice changers on here.
Oh, I got them too. I don't use them, but I do have them. They said sell $5 a ticket. So see if you can make a little change for your gas
That's
money
it?
while you're here.
$5.
But yeah, I just dropped the links to the boom and the microphone. It's Elgato setup. My whole streaming camera, microphone, boom, all that's Elgato because it works flawlessly with the streaming software that I use and recording software and everything. So I've had good luck. Yeah, everybody wants to see karaoke, Steve.
So Lance has a question here.
Changing the subject.
Is wondering any tips on where and how to start selling items? Well, we've gone over this a few different times. It's going to kind of a little depend on the market in your area. But a good way to start selling items is give a few away to your friends and family. That will help you kind of learn what people like, learn, a few different methods, and, try to tag them like with your name or something on, get a bit of a brand going, put it on the bottom, and people will have them, in their office or at their house, and people will ask about them, and you can start selling them. From there, you can also look at, use as much free marketing as you can. So if you've got business groups within your town, or you've got Facebook groups for handmade, crafted, reselling, repurposed, whatever, look those up. There's always, Facebook Marketplace, and yes, it gets flooded, but it's free, so it's your time that's involved there as far as that sale. So, reach out there and see if you can start getting a feel for what people would like in the market area you want. You can go online. There are sites like Etsy, and you can even push that you will ship through Facebook Marketplace and such. But now you're entering in the world of, you're competing with a much bigger audience. And so you're going to either need to have something unique, be in a niche kind of thing that you're doing, or be able to be competitive on price. But that's the tricky one, is where it's a race to the bottom. So I always recommend trying to figure out what's local to you, because that's, you can do it cash. You can do it in person, and that's an easy way to kind of just eliminate some of the hassle of online, between the cost of shipping, the possible costs of weird tax laws in different states and jurisdictions, and shipping damage, and or a customer just goes, oh, that's not what I thought it was going to be, and now you got to deal with that whole complexity back. So starting local is a good way to kind of build up your confidence and kind of save on a lot of costs and hassle.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, friends and family, coworkers. If you live in a community where there's a lot of small, like mom and pop stores, small business owners, hook up with some of those other small business owners, because if anybody is going to want some, customized products to try to stand themselves out against everybody else, let's say you have whether it's a bar or a some type of eating establishment in town, they may want like some custom coasters. They may want like some little tokens to give away, or gifts, or things like that. Wedding and event planners are good connections to make, because they like custom stuff that you can't just go pick up just anywhere. But start out, like Steve said, friends and family, Facebook Marketplace. Get your feet wet. Figure out, because you're going to need to figure out exactly what your how to price your jobs before you start getting too many jobs. Because if you get burnt on a couple of jobs, that's one thing. But if you go too big too fast and you get burnt on 50 jobs, it's going to hurt a lot worse. So I would, like I said, I would start local. That's what I did. I literally just started doing mine for myself and for my wife and for my friends. And we would post pictures on my personal Facebook page, and people would be like, hey, how much to make me one of those? But I want it to say this. And I'm like, I don't know. It took me, a couple of minutes. I got some materials left over, $25. So like everything I sold for a while was either $25 or $50 or $100. That was the way it worked. But then it got to the point to where now people are like, hey, I like the one you did for so and so. I want one like that, but I want it twice as big, and I want this. And so, and it's just word of mouth. I don't sell anything online. I don't advertise anywhere outside of my Facebook page. I don't put anything on Marketplace anymore. There's people around me that do. All of my jobs I get now are just word of mouth, and I turn down a lot of jobs and send them over the client, because I don't have time doing the content creation stuff. It's just it's just too much. But yeah, start out small, work your way up. That's the best thing I can tell you. So, what do you put on your pins? Not sure I'm following. It depends on the pins.
I think that's actually Dave here. That's a response to this one, which is pretty cool.
Oh.
I haven't been to the Minnesota Ren Fest in a while, namely because the traffic is crazy to get in and out of there. But
I thought you were talking about me.
Yeah, no, they and that's a, especially if you could afford it to some of these venues. The Minnesota Renaissance Festival, I know they have a number of artisans out there, um, from glass blowers and such, and wand makers, wand turners, things like that. Cool little sculpted dragon type things, puppets. I bought a stage sword there one year. That was kind of fun. That was back when like high school, college days. But so yeah, looking for kind of local places where people are going to be there, probably wanting to, spend some money. And I mean, I'm this way. I like to go to local craft fairs, maker fairs, things like that. And if I see something that someone has, put put some time and effort into, it's kind of unique. It's crazy that I'll drop the money on something that is probably going to sit on my shelf, But I like
Yeah.
supporting, artists and makers that way. What goes around comes around, and there's you try to have a variety of the inexpensive things that maybe you can put out there for $10 or $20 on up. You'd be surprised at how many of those $10 and $20 impulse buys you get that might carry you through the event
Yeah.
versus the one or two really big items that may or may not sell. But it's still good to have those bigger items out there because people see it, engage with them, give them a card, and they come back to you and say, "Hey, I saw this, but could you do this spin on it?" So,
Yeah. Well, I'm going to be honest with you. When I first started doing events, I would take cutting boards, I would take charcuterie boards, I'd take all this stuff with me. And I wound up, when I got there, you got to get it out of the trailer, you got to set it up, put it on the plate stands, display it, and do all this stuff. But the more events I do, the less of that stuff I take with me. I take one or two of each, put on the table, just so people know that I do that kind of thing, and I leave the rest of it in the trailer because it ain't worth me getting it out. Because at the end of the event, I'm probably going to have to put it back in the truck and back in the trailer. These little ink pens, I burn those on site. I put people's names on them. I put their business names on them, whatever the case may be. Happy Father's Day. I put construction company names, roofing company names. People buying them for gifts for their dad, their granddad, their father, mother, whoever. Dog tags, anything that you can attach to a dog or a cat, people will buy, and they will buy them like wildfire. The last big event I did, there was four vendors out there that had lasers, had laser stuff. A lot of them had cutting boards and some really, really intricate design stuff. Uh, Nobody there sold a lot of that stuff, but man, they were tearing me up with the pet tags with the dog's name on them. I do like patriotic dog tags with the bead chain that's like, Second Amendment, 1776, some of the old style flags, American flag, you name it. They were buying those things out so fast that I was sitting there during the event having to remake them and restock my little displays. Uh, and then people would come by and go, "Hey, I'd like to have one of those, but instead of just the flag, I want my name and the flag. Can you do that?" And so I'd knock those out. And I mean, there's only like $10 items, but you sell enough $10 items in an hour, that's pretty good money, especially when the stock to make them is cheap because I buy them in bulks of like 250 a box. So I've got to now to where I just concentrate on the small stuff. That's why the next event that I do, that
Hmm.
guy is going with me.
Yeah.
So I'm fixing to change my setup out, and I'm fixing to take the X-Tool D1 out of my setup. I'm putting the A24 in there for doing cutouts because I do some like door hanger signs and stuff sometimes, like little 12-inch signs. I'm taking the A24 for that, but I'm taking the F1 to do the little trinkets and stuff like that because it's a lot quicker than having to load my jig file, clamp it in there, put the piece in there, and send it. So I'm going to start taking that little guy to events. Matter of fact, in April, me and you will have it and the Atom Stack at Maymay's. Because I was told if I don't bring my equipment to do some laser engrave stuff, I may not get, I may not be able to make it out of there. So
Well, I will have a laser with me of sorts. So it might be the F1. I'm going to bring it with for a couple reasons, but I do want to be able to play around with it at the model airplane event I'm going to in Georgia midweek. But yeah,
Yeah.
you brought up a great point. If your focus is doing these events in person type stuff, being able to do it on the fly, do it right there, and say, hey, what are you looking for? You need a name or whatnot? Um, you know, I have a box of these little just these little brass tags, and I mean, you could put a name on there, or you could literally just take someone's picture and engrave it on there in a matter of seconds for them. There you go. See, now that I've
Holy.
trapped your head, I'm going to be playing with it in so many different
Oh,
ways.
I was fixing to say, there's no telling where that image is going to end up. I
But
tell you, I actually stumbled upon another thing that I didn't even know was a real deal, and that is medical alert tags.
yeah,
Uh, I have made them for diabetes, certain other disorders. I had one lady that, you know, bless her, she had a lot of ailments, and so she wanted a tag that basically had all of her ailments on one side and her husband's contact information on the back side. And so I sat there at the event and made it for her. And then like two people in the line were like, "Hey, could you do one of those for diabetic? Could you do one of those for what was it? There was some other thing that I didn't even know what it was." And so I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." And so I was sitting there cranking those things out for these people. There was a couple of them. People had special needs kids, and they wanted a dog tag necklace made in the event that something happened that they were to wander off or whatever. They would actually have a tag, like basically like clipped to them or whatever, that had their name and their parents' phone number and all that kind of stuff. I mean, there's all kinds of custom things that people don't think about until somebody asks you, and you're like, you know what, didn't know that was a thing. Backpack tags, people love those for their kids, especially when school's starting out. Take some acrylic, cut their name out of a piece of acrylic, and put it on their backpack. That way, when they turn it in or out or leave it laying in the library or whatever, they know who the kid is. I mean, there's thousands of possibilities, small possibilities that nobody expects to pay less than $5 to $10 for anything these days. So it's nothing to get $10 for a custom piece that's the fit in the palm of your hand.
yeah, and I just looked it up. These are 50 of these little round brass. I don't know what they call them. They're just little brass tags. They're like $15 for a pack of 50 of them. This little clack head on here took literally a minute to engrave with the F1. I mean, granted, I had a little bit of design, but even that, I mean, you take a picture, you crop out what you don't want, you slap it in there, and if you know your settings, you can do those pretty quickly on site. So I mean, if it's only taking
Yeah.
you maybe 3 minutes between design and burning, it's not like they're going to walk away in that. If you got to take 30 minutes, yeah, that's going to be difficult. But you get these smaller customizable items that people will give you, like you say, $5 to $10 for, and that can make your whole show. So
Well, I have one of these at my table, and when somebody goes, "Hey, we just got here and we want to walk around. Can I tell you what I want?" and they just come back by and pick it up, I tell them absolutely, and they'll write down the color they want, what shape, whatever, what they want the text to say, and they leave it with me. When I get caught up, I burn it. They come back by, they pick it up, they leave with it. If they don't come back and pick it up, I'm out like $1 for the
yeah,
blank. So I'm not really concerned with it. I've never had anybody stand me up like that. So that makes it easier too. Plus, if I do misspell something, I can be like, "Well, that's the way you spelt it right here." So
yep,
that's always a plus. Uh, Aldrich Customs says that they're doing metal business cards with kids' fingerprints and info for the parents to carry in case of emergency. And like I said, there's an untapped resource there because nobody can get that stuff, and if they do get it, it's offline somewhere, paying shipping and handling and all that. So there's a market for it more than likely in your area. You just got to find your way into it.
hmm
But Rough Rider, not really. There's a couple of people out there that already do jigs for the F1, and I mean, it's really not a hard machine to create a jig for. And with the size of the work area, I mean, yeah, you could do a jig for dog tags or whatever relatively easy. That just hadn't been something I've came up with. Apparently, Steve has.
Well, I've made a couple, but I was just going to point out it's got this bottom plate that it's about 4
Yeah,
inches, and it's the working area, and this pops out, and it's so. I mean, if you've got another laser, it's so easy to cut out, out of like 3 millimeter material, these squares, and then just cut out the things you need in there, and maybe laminate or glue them. It's really not hard to do that. And this is it recesses down into the base of the laser, so it makes it fairly simple to make these. So, um, you know, once you get this outline set up, and you can just laminate one or two pieces, one with your base and then the other one with your cutout for your part. Makes it very easy to just make your own jigs with that. So maybe I'll do a video on that, just to kind of help spark that idea of making some simple jigs for this. It's harder to cut it with the F1 itself if that's the only laser you have, because it's not as powerful, and getting out to those extents, it's going to be kind of an angled cut. But if you've got like a 10 watt or a 20 watt laser to pair with this, it's fairly simple to make those.
yeah. I bet I could use this 3 millimeter plywood that I don't use for nothing else.
Yeah.
I've got a bunch of that stuff. When I did the ceiling of the shop, I ordered way too much, and so I just cut it up for laser use. But
I did do a video on a pen fixture for this, and I show in that video, and also shared I just threw the files out there for free. There's a 3D printed file as well as a laser cut file for doing pens. So if you want to see one process for making the jig, I have that video out there. But I think, like I say, maybe I'll throw another video together on making a couple of other jigs to give people kind of the idea of how to do it.
yeah, I hadn't. Like I said, it's not something I've done, which I haven't really had. I haven't sat down and played with it on like batching things out, because I already have everything else set up to where I can do that. But it wouldn't be that difficult to do. And technically, with the little base right there, you could use the pieces that they send with it and create somewhat of a jig relatively easy using the little corner bracket. I don't know what you want to call the L bracket thing that comes with
Mm-hmm.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the little screw-in
Uh,
L bracket.
Yep. It's a little bigger than I thought it would be for that machine, but it works. The other one that I have is smaller, and it's just, with my fingers, it's just kind of hard to get to.
Mm-hmm.
Lance Rainey's asking, do you think the We Create Vision would be portable enough to do on-site work? That's going to depend on how far you got to carry it, because that thing's not light, and whether or not you have help, and your physical conditioning, of course. It's doable, but I would think you would definitely need to be prepared for moving it around, because it's not light.
And the other thing is it tends to be a little more sensitive to being level.
Yeah.
And so, you want to keep that into account too, is wherever you set it. If you're on just like a, concrete or gymnasium floor, it's probably not a big deal. But if you're outside on grass, it likes to be stable. It likes to be level. So you might need to factor that into it. But I would agree with you. It's a little heavy. I mean, definitely, if you have like maybe a cart, like a dolly or something, and you got a stacking system, you could probably get it around fairly easily. It's easier than, say, carting the X-Tool S1 with the riser.
Yeah.
That thing, I don't want to move that too often. It's not terribly heavy,
It's
but
awkward.
it's awkward.
Yeah.
Whereas the We Create Vision it's a nice box size. And you can lower it down so it's in transport mode, but I wouldn't want to have to physically carry it like up and down too many stairs, or wait quarter mile across a grassy field to get to my spot. So
Yeah.
but it's if you consider everything else, that the nice thing about some of these other lasers, like even the X-Tool D1 or maybe an Atom Stack, standard one, you can kind of compartmentalize them. You're like, okay, I'll take the laser out. Here's my enclosure. It's a little bit separate. they're a little bit lighter, and you can kind of take some of the weight out as you transport it. Whereas the We Create, a lot of the newer ones, they're all-in-one units. They are heavier. They're not as portable. They're not necessarily a tuck away and move around thing as much. But you wandered off to grab something. There you go. Okay.
This is what is going on my portable shack. This dust-covered Atom Stack A24. It's a little smaller and a little lighter than most of the other machines.
And the other thing at events, if you're outside and you're at least not stacked right on top of each other, you're probably okay. But definitely check into the venue if they're going to have a problem with you running lasers, and also make sure that you're keeping in mind the safety, that you have a decent enclosure that it's built for. Nothing worse than going to an event and having someone get on your case because they feel that you are improperly using your laser and cause damage either through venting the fumes or laser light. So just make sure you do it appropriately.
Greg, I recommend that your first burn be a power and speed test on whatever material you plan on testing with and using. But it's not that bad. Just home the machine, throw some material in there, set your focus, and do a speed test. Once you do that first speed test or two, the jitters will go away and you'll be fine. That's you will love the laser engraving once you figure out, like, once you got a material that you know what the settings are on. Of course, then you're going to have to do that every time. But I stick with the same material, so I know every machine in this shop, I know what my settings are for this stuff here. And even machines that I get in, as long as I know the approximate range of the power, I know where to go with it. And so I just set it to run. Somebody said I can't sit still more than 5 minutes. That's not far from the truth.
Actually, when I was running XCS and doing my speed tests, it actually warned me, like, hey, you're running a high power, low speed setting. You're going to want to monitor this, which was a kind of nice little warning. And that's where, when I said earlier, start fast, start with low power, work your way up from there. The worst thing you can do is start with high power, really slow, and that's your recipe for a fire.
Yeah, you can always slow it down.
Yeah. Yep. You can always run a second pass if you went too fast. You can't always fix it if it burned it up because you went too slow or too high of power. So keep working.
Never. I do not recommend ever going below 6 millimeters a second, which would be equivalent to what, 360 millimeters per minute. Is that right? 6 times 60 is 360, right? Math's not my strong point. Don't make me ask my Echo bot up here.
So, for cutting, right?
Yes. Okay, I'm just gonna have to break out the calculator. Yes, I'm right. It's 360. Anything less than 6 millimeters, you start getting into that danger zone of it sitting there just slowly turning black.
I mean, the problem is, some 10-watt units, they're going to have to go slower than that.
Well, I never did. When I run my X-Tool D1, I ran 3 passes at 6 millimeters a second with air assist, and great results.
I go as low as 150 millimeters a minute, so that would be what?
Hang on, my calculator didn't. 150 divided by 60. 2.5. Oh no, I that would scare me. You're gonna get some really.
I mean, I wouldn't do it with a higher power laser, but a 5 and 10 watt.
No, my 10 watts always did multiple passes. going too slow, especially with some different materials, I started having, like, look over there and all of a sudden there's a black circle in my engrave that's about this big that looks like the end of a cigarette, because it's not flaming, but it's just slowly spreading. I had that happen on a few
Well,
occasions, and that's when I was like, I will not go slower than 6 millimeters a second ever.
I mean, for cutting, I will, with air assist, but not on engraving. So anyway, start high on your speed, and maybe keep your power down, and kind of just work your way from there. And have a spritz bottle of water. Be watching it, and you should be okay.
Yeah.
Now, I don't like cutting down there, but I have.
Yeah. Had a bad experience a time or two. I just it broke me from it because it could have been bad. Because
Yeah.
you know how if you're have you ever watched any old movies, and when the fire in the fireplace went out and they were trying to get it to catch back up? Do you know what did they do? They took bellows and blew air on it. So even with air assist, it just no, I'm good. 6 millimeters, my cutoff.
It's funny that you say have ever watched old movies, because for you and I know what you're talking about. But I also work at a college, and I work with some younger people, and old movies can just mean anything. Back in the 1900s,
Yeah.
they're talking about things that came out for me in high school and college, and I'm
Well,
going, those aren't
well,
old
you
movies.
remember back in the scouts when you had your stick and you're doing this, and then you had the little ball of grass or the little thing of lint, and what did you have to? Because that makes those little coals turn into flames. So like I said, that is
Well, it
my
creates a more efficient burn, is what it does.
yeah. You're pumping more oxygen
It's
into
no
it.
longer it's no longer smoldering. It's actually burning. It's doing its job. It's getting through there.
Hey, when my laser looks like I'm running a freaking a plasma cutter, we're speeding up a little bit. Plasma cutters are supposed to have sparks going out the bottom. Lasers, not so much. But yeah. Oh,
Hmm. Well, Chris, yeah, Star Wars is a back in the old days movie, but you talk to kids these days, they're talking about the Jar Jar Binks ones being the old Star Wars. So, or heaven
yeah.
forbid, anything that's come out from Disney.
All right. See you not. Have a good one. Uh, I I don't have one of those. That's not quite in my range of affordability right now. Do you have one? You do, don't you?
I don't have a downdraft table for sanding. I've seen a few people make them. That's all about airflow. Um, a cheap alternative, get yourself a box fan and throw some box filters on it, and just move air across your sanding area, and that filter will catch it. But yeah, I've seen some plans out there to make some depending on how big you want it. But the problem is you really got to get some airflow moving through it. And so it usually involves like an old box fan furnace kind of thing. And then they have multiple, it's like a 2 foot square surface. They have a bunch of holes in it, and they're pulling the air in through there, and then they're pushing it out through some of those furnace filters and such. But I haven't looked at any commercial ones, but because I generally like to DIY those types of things. But um, honestly, the best thing I've done for sanding is I spent a lot on a good sander. So I've got a Mercadero sander, random orbit one, and then I paired it with a really good dust collection setup. It's actually a Festool HEPA filter. It's technically a shop vac, but they call it their dust collector. And that has done wonders for keeping my sanding dust contained. Having kids with asthma and such, you really got to take it seriously. And they were out in the shop with me working on things. So, I tried to I spent the money to try to make sure I had a pretty good setup for that sander. It's an expensive way to go though. But if you're getting into doing a lot of it, getting a nice sander, is worth it, both from ergonomics and just the quality of keeping your shop clean, and just the nice. like Clack is saying with his getting his shop Smith dust collector, you don't know what you don't know until you can finally afford to have it in some way, shape, or form. So,
Yeah, and that's what I found out, and I've been looking at now because I've been looking at the Festool dust collector that you're talking about, but the Shopsmith actually has 1.5 adapters that come with the machine
mhm.
that plug into it, and they have little caps. So I think I'm going to start out by seeing if I can't find me, like for my DeWalt's, see if I can find me a 1.5 inch hose long enough to reach over there and just see how that works. I know the DeWalt isn't as going to be as good at dust collecting as some of the others, but at this point, if I could have a 50% decrease, I'd be happy.
Yeah, and the I'm trying to think because I have a corded DeWalt, and I think I had to buy there was a funny adapter to get to the right hose size, but
Yeah,
also
I've got two of those already.
Rockler makes some small port adapters that they're kind of a silicone adjustable hose that kind of you can stretch and fit over a few different things. So yeah, getting just a good shop vac collection on your existing sander will do wonders over just having that just little bag that kind of collects a little bit and then just starts spitting things everywhere. So
Yeah. When mine starts spitting, I go clean it out. But it's just, especially when I'm doing a lot of projects in a day, it's just like there's no end to it. It's just go clean it, come back, go clean it, come
yep.
back. So I'm looking for a better alternative, and I think, like I said, I think the Shopsmith is capable, as long as I can get everything connected to it, and using that 1.5 hose, I think is going to be the way to go.
Yeah. So, I mean, let me grab this real quick. We've talked about a lot of expensive setups. I just got this in, actually. This is from Oneida. It's a Dust Deputy Low Pro. You can kind of see right there is a 5-gallon pail, and it's got a cyclone on top of it, and that's just hooked up into a typical rigid shop vac. These you can get these setups for anywhere. I mean, you want the cheap Chinese knockoffs that may or may not work for like $25 on up to maybe $75, $80 for a setup like this. It goes on a 5-gallon pail, and this will improve your shop vac performance for things like this. And putting that on, I actually have this on. Well, let me just wheel it over here. I've got this on a cart for like moving around my shop. I can take it out to the van for vacuuming, but I can wheel it up to tools that need dust collection. And like I say, you don't have to have a lot of money into it, and it does a lot for you. Well, let me go grab it quick.
Greg, yes, on the Rolly, there is a USB cable that comes out of the back of it. That is the one for the camera. It has two USBs. You got one that's going to connect to the machine on the side, on the left side, and then you have the other one that comes out for the camera. And I'll give me just a second. I'll show you real quick. So this right here is going to be the camera. This little wire right here is the camera, and then that one is going to be for the PC connection. So there you go. Hope that answers your question there, Greg. But yeah, the wire at the back is the camera.
So this is that little adapter I was talking about from Rockler. Mm-hmm. So this threads into your smaller hose, and then this is kind of a silicone. It can go over most smaller tool dust ports, and they have a couple different sizes of these, and that'll adapt into most sanders, including like a corded DeWalt one. But let me see if I can lean this down a little bit. So this is the setup I have. Just a 5-gallon pail, cyclone down into the shop vac on bottom. And then I have my hose coming out that I can hook into whatever tool So this can just hook into whatever tool. So you can adapt it down to the smaller size if you need it, or I can hook this into the CNC. I can plug it into some of the other tools that have a 2.5 port. And this is just some 1/2-inch plywood, your typical shop vac, and one of these buckets. It does a lot to help, when you can hook up dust collection to any one of those, any one of your tools or into your sander, it can do wonders for kind of keeping the clutter down and keeping it out of your lungs and such. So I would strongly recommend that. If you can't get some of these more fancy ones with the HEPA filters and whatnot, I would definitely recommend trying to do something similar to this to help out.
Well, all of my big tools are exhausted using the old wind that I have, but it just literally blows it outside. So, but I don't run those for extended periods of time. And where I'm at, like I said, if I'm just making some chop cuts or running the table saw or the router table or something for a little while, it's not enough to change the temperature as much. But with the CNC, I've got it on the Shopsmith. But you can see right there, I've got that hose that goes up to PVC and it goes over, comes back down, and it connects over into the wind. And the wind literally has a 4-inch piece of pipe that goes out the wall. And then once the pile gets too big, I take the tractor, go over there and scoop it up and go dump it in the chicken pen. They love getting all the grubs and bugs and stuff that get in that pile. But I have it's a little messy. I've been using it to do woodworking this week, but I'll walk you over there and show you. It's confusing with the blast gates though. So you got blast gates for every machine.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and this is where I forgot to close. I think I forgot to close this one, and the planer, it has the blower built into it, so it blows chips out the top of the table saw if you're not careful. And then over here, I've got the bandsaw is connected back over to there, and then it all goes to there, and then it goes out through the wall to the free world, and then this guy is connected, of course, to the CNC. So it's a bit of a cumbersome mess right now. When I get if I ever get to build me a new shop, I'm gonna do a little better job with that. But that was the best I could do with the situation that I had, economically speaking. The blast gates are the cheapest ones you can get on Amazon, and they're not ideal, but it somewhat works for now. So
yeah, so
Martin, this pipe right here, the metal pipe, I haven't seen a whole lot of static problems with mine. I don't know if I just got lucky or what, but the PVC, I haven't had a problem with it. Now the spiral hose does have a metal wire in it, so mostly every machine that metal wire connects to, it grounds it. But I don't have them. Like soldered or anything at the joints. But I don't have a problem with any static. I used to on the planer, but since I've redid the system, it hasn't shocked me in a long time. So I'm guessing it's not having that problem anymore either. I'm not sure why.
It is something to be aware of, though. I've run into that a few times, especially on dust collection for CNCs, because if that static feeds back into the controller in any way, you can I've had it just pause the controller. Machine will be running along, and all of a sudden, I'm done, and so I got to reboot it. And occasionally, yeah, you can notice too in some setups if that wire in that flexible hosing isn't grounded, you'll brush by it and you get a little static off of it. So definitely something to be mindful of. So, but yeah, dust particulate is really bad for your lungs, and so doing something about it, whether it's a nice, I've got a nice dust collector over there. I'm going to try to point backwards. That I was able to eventually get to hook up to some of my bigger tools. It goes for my table saw, my router table, my bandsaw, and my router or my planer. Even though I only have a couple hoses, but I've got like the Rockler quick connect system, so I can just yank it off of the one I need and plug it into the other, because I'm never running 2 machines at once. It's a little annoying. Okay, I got to go grab it from the one and go over. But, rather than having a spider's nest of hose and
Yeah.
50 different
Well,
glass gates to mess with, it works for me for now. But
the
but yeah,
plan is I'm going to build a new table because that's an old desk. I don't know if you noticed that, but that is a desk that was actually out by the dumpster at the police department. They were throwing it away, and I'm like, "What are y'all doing with this old desk?" And I'm like, "I could use that to put tools on, keep me having to build a table." Because I took the legs off of it and just added casters to the bottom of it, and it was the perfect height. So I do have plans. Matter of fact, the lumber's over there stood up in the corner where I was going to try to build that table this past week, but it hasn't happened. And I'm wanting to build a table that will incorporate those tools and give me a cleaner, sleeker work area with some of those hoses ran through the table, strapped up out of the way, that kind of thing. But that's on my personal to-do list, and it just ain't getting done right now. But I've even flirted with the idea of, you've seen the people where they have the machines where you pull the lever and it flips upside down. But I was like, that's just way too much work. I'd be flipping them up and it's upside down constantly.
I could see it if you have like one tool you use a lot and one tool you rarely use. But if you're using all the tools all the time, that would get really old.
Most of the tools that I rarely use, I've gotten rid of because I just don't
me
have
too.
room.
Yeah, me too.
My scroll saw that I have not used since I got into because I had a scroll saw, then I got the band saw, and then I found out that they actually make scroll blades for band saws, and so I don't need the scroll saw anymore. Most of the stuff the scroll saw is good for, I can do with a laser now. So I've got
but a scroll saw is good when it's
just sitting.
A scroll saw is good when you got too wide of a piece to fit on in the throat of the bandsaw. So, but yeah, I kind of did the same thing. The scroll saw was sitting on the bench, and I ended up giving it to my sister because she had a use for it and such. The bandsaw works really well for most of that type of stuff. Although I like leaving the resaw blade on mine for the bigger stuff. But
it's just relatively easy. If you look hanging over top of my dust collection, there's a resaw blade. It doesn't take. I've gotten pretty proficient with changing that blade out and getting it tensioned back right. Now, the first few times I did it, it was a real hassle, and I almost threw the entire bandsaw away. But I've gotten better at it now. So, but yeah, my my scroll saw is inside one of where the drawers used to be. I now use for shelves, and it's sitting in there, and it's bolted to a piece of pine 1x12. And I just sit it on this table right here and clamp it with some wood clamps to the table and go to work when I do use it. And I haven't used it in a while. But yeah, it's like I had a buddy come over the other day. He's like, "Man, I've really been thinking about playing with a lathe. I just don't know if I want to go buy one." I'm like, "Hey, go look in that corner back there, up underneath the honey separator, and grab that lathe and those tools and take it with you. And if I need it, I'll call you to bring it back over." So.
yeah.
Because I haven't used it in forever.
I have 2 lathes in my shop.
Yeah. Somebody said, I guess they're talking about me. I'm lucky to live in a high humidity climate, which it's only 40% humidity right now. Oh, that's a small one compared to the one that I had.
Yeah, it's a Shoreline kind of mini metal lathe, and
Cool.
picked this up I got this used. It was one of those things like I knew what it was, and they weren't asking enough for it. I'm like, I got to have that. And I've only just played around. I got some brass stock and some aluminum stock and just kind of messed around with it a little bit. I've never really used this for anything functional.
Well, that's me. I was on market. Mine was a marketplace impulse buy because this was an older Craftsman, but it was like a 36-inch lathe with like a 2 horsepower motor. And I was like, wow. And it was $50. So as soon as I saw it, I'm like, "Hey, where you at? I got $50. I'm coming to get it." And I got it home. I had to replace the tail spindle on it because the bearings had seized up. But I bought a all new headstock piece for it, as well as the tail. Bought some tools, used it for probably a week or so, and then quit. So
Well, I have a bench top wood lathe, and I've turned quite a few pens on it and some other fun things. I've got a small bowl set up for it, but it's one of those rabbit holes that you dive down and you got to crawl back out of eventually. Otherwise, you'll just be throwing shavings and hunting down, turning wood and everything. So, but a lot of fun out here. So
Well, it's actually past the 2 hours. Y'all done
it
kept us
is.
talking, man.
Yes.
But I could talk shop all day. Of course, y'all know that I do it a lot. Not, which I will say, Steve currently holds the title for longest YouTube video published. So
Well,
just
between us, there are longer
yeah,
ones out there.
well, but yeah, between me and you hold the record because it wasn't long ago. Someone sent me a message and was like, 48 minutes. Wow, I'm gonna need to put a break in there somewhere, like a halftime show. And so now, touche, sir. It has turned around
Well,
on you.
I was expecting you to give me some flack earlier when you sent me after me talking about my feature film launch, and then you sent me your video. It's like, and I'm like, 16 minutes. I ain't got time for that. When mine was an hour and 15.
Yeah,
But
but anyway, yeah.
I did so there was a fun part where I did put I've got the clack on a stick. So if you want to at least go watch this part where I don't give him a big head, I did link to it in the Laser Graver community on Facebook page. It's linked right at the point where I start talking about, cutting his head out on the photo. So at least go check that part out. And I tried to have a little fun with it. And but yeah, I appreciate everybody's support there. The whole video is more of we talked about this earlier. It's a long video on getting started with your S1 and the XCS 2.0. I promise you, I don't want to do videos that long very often. So, but there is some fun stuff in there. So if you're curious in that group, we do have links down below to the Laser Graver community group on there. We do have a lot of people in there sharing their ideas, their file, not their files, but their projects, and sometimes their files. We try to keep the sales stuff out of there unless it's an established member that's doing something. We try to keep the just the people coming in as spam stuff out of there. But it's a good group, growing. With more people asking questions. It's a good way to connect with us and others when you're trying to get help midweek and we're not around. We also have links down below on our videos to our Laser Engraver community map. We're over 415 strong on there now. There's a form there where you can put a name to be displayed, which is optional, as well as a location. It can be any location that Google Maps will pick up, and that will put your pin on the map to help us fill out where all of our listeners and viewers are at. It's completely optional, and you don't even need to use a real name. You can use your shop name or just a screen name or no name at all. And you don't need to put your specific address. It could just be city, state, or regional area, landmark kind of thing. But it is kind of neat to see where everybody's at. It allows people to somewhat, get an idea if there's someone near them that maybe you want to do a meetup, or if we're traveling, like I'll be doing here in a few weeks. And we think we might be able to have a meetup. We'll throw something out there if it looks like there might be some people in the area. So check that out down below. I do try to update that a few times throughout the week with the responses. So don't be surprised if your pin doesn't get dropped on it right away, but it'll be there shortly. Other than that, if you're here from my channel, go follow Clack and give him a like. We have Facebook pages and Instagram pages we try to keep up, and all that support does help give us a little more benefit when we're trying to work with companies and products and get more information to you guys. So that's my spiel on all our stuff.
Yeah, Don's asking, said he bought a chiller for his K40. Wants to know if it's better to use distilled water or the chiller fluid that Amazon sells. And I think that's going to be a big if. If it's in a climate controlled environment, you could get away with just distilled water. If it's not, then you may want to look into getting some antifreeze. I can say personally, I used the RV antifreeze in mine, and it worked. But now I'm in a very moderate climate, so They do sell specific CO2 laser antifreeze.
Well, the stuff you want something that's not you want it to be very pure. You don't want it to be very conductive. And some of like the vehicle antifreezes will have additives in there that can actually be a bit conductive. So generally, when they're saying RV antifreeze, you want to get the stuff that's meant for the holding tanks. It's you would put it in there to winterize it, that it's safe for human consumption and such. Doesn't have a lot of additives to it, but it does help lower that freezing point. I have run up to a 50-50 mix distilled water and RV antifreeze in my lasers. Granted, my shop out here is mostly climate controlled. It doesn't get to extremes. It gets warm, it gets a little cold, but it never freezes. And so I haven't had to ever test it. But yeah, I honestly, if it's in your house or your basement, and you'd be fine. Just make sure you get distilled water. That's what you want. You don't want mineral water. You don't want just general filtered
calcium
water
in there.
Yeah, you want the distilled water. So.
Yep. What's up, STL Woodworking? How are you, sir? Trying to get Steve to fire up that Onefinity over there, and he just won't do it. See, STL, he's a fellow Shapico 5 guy over there. So I'm just saying, I haven't seen any work out of that Onefinity lately.
It's coming. It's coming. I got Cody's bits primed. Gonna be doing some things. I just
Yeah.
Been some of those weeks.
Yeah, it's been a little busy. But anyway, guys, like I said, is that a Creality in the background? Are they talking to me or you? Do you have a Creality in the background?
Not here. No, he might be thinking of either your
it's either the laser
your MK2 or
the Atom Stack A24. Yeah, I don't have a Creality in the shop. Creality had mentioned a while back sending me one of their new enclosed setups. I had the Creality Falcon 2, but I didn't have the one with the enclosure and everything. But this is the Rolly MK2, 30 watt, and that little guy over there is the Atom Stack A24 Pro with the upgraded enclosure camera and all that stuff. But no, so far, no Creality over here, which I haven't heard from them. The only people I've heard from recently is Atom Stack, that I may have something coming in with them. But you never know. I'm trying to stay away from that as much as I can. But as new lasers come out and new innovations come out, I do want to be able to try them out, see what they do, and try to pass that information on to you guys, because that's one of the reasons why, even though it's a pain dealing with having to do this stuff sometimes, because you have deadlines and you have, backlog at times, I do enjoy being able to tell you guys what I think about a machine. That way, if it's something really, really bad or whatever, I can try to point it out to you. But most of the machines I get, they live up to expectations. I'll put it that way. I haven't had any major disappointments. I've had one or two peripheral disappointments, but the machines in general, I haven't had any problems with. So, but anyway, I guess that's all we got for tonight, Steve. Unless you just want to try to pull the midnight oil or something.
Yeah, well, we will have to cut it off pretty quick, but just a couple questions we can jump through quick. AGT Restore is asking a quick question: which 3D printer is a good starter? That's going to depend on your budget. If you're willing to spend a little bit of money, a lot of people are loving the Bamboo Labs P1S. They have a whole series. That's kind of a good, works well. The Prusa the Prusa printers as well have been a good solid standby that are just known for working out of the box. If you're not afraid of doing a little plane and want to save some money, the Creality Ender line has been around a lot. There's a lot of help out there. There's a lot of aftermarket parts. There's a lot of parts on Amazon for it. And so, that's a good route to go as well. But that's a market that is constantly changing. So, it kind of goes in hand with Clack's video that he posted today about lasers. There's a few different things. And number one, you got to look at your budget. But number two, you got to look at what you're doing, because if you're looking at more functional parts, an FDM printer is going to be good. If you're looking at more decorative parts, a resin printer is going to be maybe the thing you want to do. So, budget line, if you're looking at probably spending the least amount of money, but still getting a decent machine, but willing to do a little bit of work and setup, the Creality Ender line is pretty solid.
Yeah, I've got the Ender 3 Neo. Ender 3 S1 Neo something. Anyway, it's basically the Ender 3, but it's the Neo version, and I did a bunch of upgrades to it. Small work area. It's not blazing fast, but with the right settings, it's producing me some really good parts, and it's definitely taught me a lot of things. I am looking at hopefully upgrading to the Bamboo Labs Carbon one of these days, but we'll see how that goes. Yeah, good luck with the STL. Said he's getting an Avid soon, so
Oh, very nice.
yeah, he's moving away from the Shapeco, but that's okay, I guess.
Well, my friend Chris has his running a Glimpse Inside down in Florida, and he's been loving it. Really nice machine. So
Yeah. Andrew, every Sunday night at 7 p.m. And I don't think we've missed a Sunday in over a year and a half now. Even Easter, Super Bowl Sunday, Christmas Eve.
Yep.
Because like I said, a lot of you guys are like us. We're homebodies. We don't really go out, go places, go partying or anything like that. We like spending quality time with our tools. And so we always discuss, hey, it's going to be Christmas Eve. Are you good? And Steve's like, yep, I'll be at home. So let's do it. Somebody else is asking, what is your favorite rotary? And I will have to say a resounding, okay. Oh, look, we picked the same one.
Beat you to
it. Well, hey, wait a minute. I can get a different one. Stand by.
If it's the one I'm thinking, I sent it off to get modified.
All right. This is actually my favorite because it's black.
Oh, look at that.
Ooh, yeah, that's a black one.
Yeah.
And then that's
the Adam Stack Chuck style. What are they? Is this like the R2? No, R1 Pro.
Yes.
This is a pretty solid, and it works with most standard diode lasers. So it comes with a couple of different adapters for the ends, but if you have a typical 4-pin stepper motor, they generally have an adapter that works for it.
Yeah, and the thing about this one is what limits. Now, I did see last night, Leo was talking about they were fixing to basically release an extension for the Chuck in the MK2. I like the Chuck in the MK2. I like the way they've got it pinned into the machine. But where this one actually, in my opinion, is better, it's just because it's bigger. It accepts, like, it'll do larger tumblers. So if you're trying to get into the Stanleys and the big, 44-ounce tumblers, this guy can handle them without any modification. The one the Lasermatic sells, the one the X-Tool sells, both of those are limited. I think, what's the X-Tool, 75 millimeters, I think, before it bottoms out, or you have to flip it over and sit on the box and do all
the nice thing about
to it.
any of these is you can flip them over, you can raise them up. There are ways to make them work with larger objects, but these Atom Stack ones are bulkier and they've got more weight to counteract it. So that's one of the reasons we really like them. They're easy to adjust. You don't really need a key to adjust the chuck.
Look how wide that thing opens up.
It's
so there. I run the Atom Stack. I'll run it with the Longer. I'll run it with the Niji. I'll run it with the Algo, Sculpt Fun, the Acer. Because this also, if you can find somebody parting with one of these, if you can find one that's the Acer model, it's the same thing. So if somebody's trying to get rid of one, if you see one on Marketplace or something, Acer and Atom Stack, the only difference is a couple of the contour lines on the design and the color. That's it. Because Klein has my Acer rotary. This is the one that came with the No, this is one that came with this machine, I think. And then the black one came with the A24. And I keep backups, guys. People have asked me how many machines I have. I keep backups. I will never have less than 2 of these rotaries in my shop, because if this one dies, I have another one ready to plop in there and go with it. But yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Well, STL, that's cool that you got Jay Bates CNC. I saw the video he posted about that, and I know he's moving, but I didn't get a chance to watch it. So that'll be a fun machine.
All right. Well, I guess we're about ready to go then. Try to catch up, make sure nobody else asks any questions before we just bail on them. Grab the Sculpt Fun S30 Ultra and an extension size table that apparently needs edits to work with an Ultra. Not sure I know what that again. Well, yeah, Andrew, feel free. Stop in Sunday nights. Like I said, sometimes I'm a little late getting the thumbnail created and everything, but it's Sunday night, 7 p.m. Central. We're going to be here, unless something really bad happens. There may become occasions to where it's just Steve, or it's just me, or Steve and somebody else, or me and somebody else. But we try to maintain consistency with the live, because we know that there are some people that want to come in here, ask questions, and try to expand upon their knowledge of lasers and stuff. And we're going to tell you the best we know, and I cannot promise you that we'll never be wrong. It could simply happen, but we'll see. 8.7 horsepower spindle. That's insane. I'd break so many bits. But anyway, y'all have a good night, and I appreciate you stopping by. STL, like I said, if you're into CNCs, he's got some pretty cool stuff over there that he does, especially with the inlays, which I haven't even thought about trying to get into yet. I have been watching some of his videos, trying to get an idea of what I'm getting into, but that's a whole nother rabbit hole. And I'm just now starting to settle into this whole epoxy rabbit hole, so it'll be a while. But till next time, guys, if you have any questions, like I said, me and Steve both have Facebook pages. You can go over, follow, like, share those pages. And if you have any questions, you can message me or Steve. That or email are the two best ways to get in touch with us, because a lot of the stuff with YouTube, once you post your first comment or your first thing, it's easy to get lost in the mix. But if you will, if you'll send me a message through Facebook or an email, that's the best way to contact us. And also go check out the Laser Engraver community page. Links in the description. A lot of like-minded people, and as few of spam bots as we can allow, because as soon as they make themselves known as a spam bot, we delete them and get them out of there. Trying to keep it clean for you guys to be able to share your ideas and stuff. So anything you got, Steve, you want to say before we cut on out of here?
No, I'm good. We'll see how this week goes. Hopefully we'll both be getting some more content out. Otherwise, we'll definitely see everybody back here next Sunday night. All
right. Thank you. And y'all be safe. Have a good day. And go check out STL Woodworking if you want to see how to do some CNC stuff. And I guess a new Avid machine. Good night, everybody.